Hey guys, welcome back to another episode. Today we will be looking at Epic Encounters Tower of the Lich Empress. Now, if you're a lazy DM like me, this is a campaign ready right out of the box. Comes with a booklet with all the instructions and tools that you will need. Also has stat blocks, including this Lich Baroness, Lich Queen, and the dreaded Challenge 21 Lich Empress, the way this campaign was supposed to be ran. It also comes with a ton of information, a map, a few little NPC cards. You can also buy the miniatures separately, tactics, and a ton of information to get this campaign going. Do check it out, but today we are going to be painting the Lich Empress. So please sit back and enjoy. Alright, here's our dreaded Lich Empress, right out of the box here. So I did notice this type of material that they use to make the miniatures can be a bit hard to prime at first. The paint doesn't tend to want to stick to it. So whenever you prime this, you might have to prime it a couple of times. Here's the base. I absolutely love the way this base is put up. Very sinister looking. And these flame skulls are freaking awesome as well. Just look at that detail. And they're on fire. I'm thinking we're going to do like a green fire look here. And these flame skulls, they have a little place that you can pop them in on the base. Almost like they're protecting their master of any threats that come to try to destroy her. I absolutely love this. And the Empress, she sits on her throne here on the base. So this is going to be very fun to paint. So we're going to start off by priming it black. And you will see here in just a minute how the paint on the Empress is not really sticking very well. So I had to go in about 2 or 3 times, but here is the final primed look. Now I did use very thin coats. Here's the flame skulls. I took a bit of sticky tack and put it on a pill bottle so that I could handle it a little bit better. So we start with the base here, and I'm going to do a bit of an overbrush here. Now what I mean by that is instead of the dry brush where you take your paint and completely dry off your brush, an overbrush, you just kind of wipe it off a few times. I want a pretty heavy color here to give that stone-like illusion. And here it is, completely overbrushed. Very cool and ready to serve our master here. So we continue with the base. We're going to take our Empress out here. And if you notice at the bottom part of the base, there's like these details that are these noxious looking gassy fumes. So we're going to start dry brushing that. I'm going to use a makeup brush here for blending with Angel Green. And I'm just going to go through, and I've sped up the process here, but I'm just going to go through and just slowly blend all those colors, the gray into the green, and then we're going to slowly build that up. Now this is a very long process. I use the makeup brush only because it's more of a blending effect instead of like a dry brushing effect. And it really gets in there and blends all the colors. I've noticed that when you use a makeup brush for like cloaks, clothing, or even almost like smoke or gas looking appearances, even fire, it blends it and it looks perfect. So here is the start of it. Also, another tip. So I'm going to go around the perimeter of the inside of the floor of the base here, and it's going to give it almost like a glowing like appearance. So we're just gonna go up on the color scale, Goblin Green, and I'm just gonna slowly blend all those colors together, slowly going from darkest to lightest. And I've sped it up here. Here's Snake Scales, even lighter. And as you can see the effect starting to play out. It almost looks like the nauseous gas that is coming from our Empress. Now some Putrid Slime. This is actually a special color from, I think, the Undead D&D colors. I'm not really sure. I forget where I got it. But you can see the awesome effect that these colors are all just blending together into one on the base here. And look at that. Absolutely awesome looking. So next we're going to do our base coat on our Lich Empress here. Now the color that I'm using is not from Army Painter. I think it's from Reaper Colors. It's one of my favorite colors to paint red clothing in, only because it just dries so crisp and it just looks so good as a base coat. And that color is Crimson Red. I think it's from Reaper Paints. I'm not really sure. It's one of my older bottles, and it's just one of my favorites. As you can see here, look at that. It's just an awesome color to use in a base coat here. So we're going to go in now with True Copper, and I'm just going to paint all the metal bits and bobs here. I think this is a good color to complement the red. Now with these Army Painter metal paints, sometimes you have to go a couple of times to get full coverage on them. Next up is Skeleton Bone. We're going to start on the flame skulls here. Now I'm just going to put a base coat on the bony part and leave the flames and the gas looking part alone here. And also we're going to put Skeleton Bone on our Lich's hands, and she's also holding these skulls. So we're just going to base coat all of those and her face in Skeleton Bone. Now we're going to be going in with some washes to give that undead-like appearance. Next up here is Red Tone. We are going to go in and wash our Lich here, all the clothing that she's wearing. Reason being, this gets into all the recesses and gives you a very nice shadowy look. Then we're going to go in with Strong Tone. At first, when the Strong Tone goes on this lighter color, it's going to look awful. Just make sure you spread it out, get it into the recesses. Once it dries, it gives that effect of old deteriorating bone. And that's what we want on the flame skulls here. I'm also going to put the Strong Tone on the Lich's hands, the skulls that she's wearing, and also on her face. Now what this does is it gives the illusion of shadows, and it also gives it an undead appearance. Moving on to the flame skulls, I'm going to use the same technique and pattern that we used on the Lich's base. So once that tedious process is done, we're going to turn our highlights up to 1,000 here. I'm just going straight to yellow, and I'm going to be very careful and pick out the highest points on this gas here. And what it does is it just blends perfectly and gives it the illusion of just gas flowing on this base. And once those highlights are complete, we're going to go in with Dragon Red. I also mixed in the Dragon Red with some leftover of that Crimson Red that I had, because I want to slowly build up these highlights on the Lich's clothing. Now, you can highlight the clothing as much as you want. You can dial up your highlights to 1,000. I'm only going to use about 3 colors here, only because I didn't want it to look too crazy. I wanted her clothing to look kind of basic, and that sounds kind of off, but she's an undead creature, and I didn't want her to be too bright, but I did want some differences of the shading of her clothing here, and that's what I'm basically doing. I'm just hitting the raised edges of where I think a light might touch. Next, we're going to use lava orange, and we're just going to pick out the highest points of all these highlights and all the edges, and it will make a nice gradient effect here. And that's what we want. Once it dries, it'll look awesome, and you can see the obvious differences, but right now it's still wet, so once it dries, it'll look very good. And last but not least, we're going to go through with some true copper, and we're just going to paint the edges of all the details on our Lich's clothing here. And that's gonna about wrap up the video. I hope this guide was helpful for you guys. If you like this video, please like, share, and consider subscribing. It's totally free, and enjoy these action shots.